I get to lead off on this theme for today. I'm very honored that I was asked to participate today, because when you're asked to participate, it makes you think and consider in ways that took me longer than I anticipated to do. 5 minutes. So thank you, Worship Committee, for inviting me. I loved teaching. I will always be grateful for the career that I had at SUNY Potsdam and the opportunities to do truly adventurous academic and creative projects with students and colleagues from across the college and around the world. It was a privilege to be part of that vital community for almost 25 years of formal employment. I am also grateful to be retired, because in the end, I have to admit that more than teaching, I love being free to study, to have time and resources to be able to return to my true passion, being a student again. I am also grateful for the pandemic. I know that's an odd thing to say, but the timing was perfect. I retired on December 31st, 2019. In less than 3 months, whatever plans I had for retirement were disrupted and thrown hither and yon. And I realized quickly that this was not going to be typical or normal, and it wasn't, and it still isn't. The gift of the pandemic was how it shaped new kinds of time for me. It was more alone time than I had planned on. The pandemic gave me the opportunity that I probably would not have chosen on my own. I was pushed, sometimes kicking and screaming, into deeper reflection, quiet time, and opening spaces to see and listen and feel in more authentic ways. I was introduced to wisdom traditions, and I want to take this opportunity to thank 3 people who are friends and members of our congregation who generously supported me in this journey of the last 2.5 years: Jan Hutzler, Robin Collin, and Kathy Montan. Friends and mentors who offered me new opportunities to study and contemplate. And surprising even myself, I began exploring more and more questions about purpose, path, service, and higher good. This is the sense that I have come to use the word spiritual, to ask questions. And I emphasize questions. I am far from answers. These are questions that are at once highly personal and contain significant political dimensions. What is the nature of spirit in my life and the larger world? What is my personal spirituality? And how does that affect my actions? The concept of the soul, moral and ethical dilemmas, unconditional love versus judgment, action versus reaction, the role of compassion in everyday life. These are all spun out and became intertwined. And love, finding and understanding this thing called love and how it works, what it means, and its centrality, both personally and politically. I was guided to those whose lives are devoted to these questions: Pema Chodron on desire, loss, and happiness, Jurian Hughes and my good friend Rosemary Ring on yoga as spiritual practice, Michael Harner's research on shamans along with the teachers from the Foundation for Shamanic Studies, scientists Robin Wall Kimmerer and Merlin Sheldrake with their complex and beautiful merging of science, humanity, and spirituality. And Biografías en una huerta, by my friend Miguel Cortázar, who was here with us with his wife Peggy in 2008. He wrote a book on his personal and political spiritual journey. These wise women and men are feeding my spiritual appetite. And yet, with all of this and the time to be able to read and absorb and think about and share these, the most profound source was when the pandemic and retirement pushed me out into the forest. And under the canopy of trees, I found a new depth to spirituality. Like many, and I'm sure many here, I found solace, wonder, contemplation, joy, and more questions as I spent hours in the woods and meadow, in the Adirondacks and the Kulin Mountains, by the waters of the Racket and the Deschutes rivers, and by the North Sea. I started to look and then see. I started to hear and then listen. I started to feel the earth and touch the wind, to smell the bark of the white pine and taste the milk and the meat of the mushroom. And then I started to understand. I have a hard time putting words to it. In fact, words do not seem adequate. Transformative, blow my mind, the giddy joy of epiphany, chills racing up my back, my torso, my toes, my groin. I began to know interconnectedness and to know it from the body, not just the mind, not an intellectual concept or even principle of the UU Church, but a corporal human animal knowing. It was a spiritual growth spurt. And I am so blessed that we have an abundance of nature here, so close, so accessible. I am more and more conscious of its tremendous strength. I am humbled in that. And I am also more conscious of its fragility, given the reality of Homo sapien greed. What does this consciousness mean in terms of action or reaction? It's a question that I ponder personally, and I know it's also one for the collective. That's a different sermon. Finally, I realized the happy news. This spiritual investigation and retirement thing doesn't end. There is no arriving. It's an ongoing journey. And I am happy to report that while not always prepared, I am eager to continue. And I must say, I look forward to doing it more in the coming years with this beloved community, this community of journeyers, in this beautiful, beautiful spiritual home that we're coming back to. A home that we have that welcomes and nurtures our growth, our humanness, and our spirituality. Thank you to all of you who have contributed to these wonderful growth spurts, these spiritual growth spurts that make us Unitarian Universalists and friends. Thank you.
Retirement. Retirement is what many of us look forward to after years of hard work at our jobs or careers. Freedom, rest, finally a permanent vacation, waking up and going to bed when you want to. You can choose to do something or nothing. You can do whatever you want. Sounds great, right? One would think so. But I soon discovered that while gaining this new freedom called retirement, I felt that my life lost purpose and meaning. You see, for 40 years, I've found my life's purpose and meaning in being a successful music teacher. 25 years in the Diocese of Columbus, Ohio, running from school to school as Karen Collins, the traveling band lady, designing and leading engaging musical programs. Then 15 years in higher education with 13 years here at the Crane School of Music, guiding future and current music teachers to create their own school music programs. This gave me much fulfillment until the final years when I determined it's time to retire and move on. But on to what? Merriam-Webster dictionary basically has two different definitions of the word retirement. One, withdrawal from one's position or occupation or from an active working life. Or two, a place of seclusion or privacy. Could these two differing definitions be related? Well, I believe that all depends if you are truly retired. Some commonly used synonyms for retirement include pull back, pull out, withdrawal, retreat. As I pulled back and pulled out from my vigorous, purposeful career, I discovered that I am now withdrawing into a personal retreat or a place of seclusion. I needed to find new ways to nurture meaning and purpose in my life. Otherwise, I would just fill my days with busy work to keep my mind occupied, and I really didn't want to do that. No one really prepared me for this drastic transition. When one prepares for retirement, it's usually about calculating personal and family finances, evaluating medical decisions, making plans for travel and leisure. No one prepares you for how you'll find new meaning and purpose in your new lifestyle. This journey you must take on your own, and so I did. I have to say it wasn't easy. After 2 years of retirement, I'm still on this journey. Who knows where it'll lead next? But for now, I have discovered it is that finding meaning and purpose is a personal spiritual quest. Purpose and meaning are no longer tied to my career of service to others, but it's tied to servicing my soul, listening to my inner voice, feeding my spirit, nurturing lasting happiness. How does one do this? Well, again, that's a journey you must take on your own. But for me, I found deep-rooted connection between making music and experiencing peace. I discovered that music, art, nature, and community work together to foster healing and deep understanding. I began to read about Indigenous thinking and our connectivity to Mother Earth. I found that I had a knack for leading drum circles and improvising on Native American style flutes. Just last week, I organized a local Play Music on the Porch Day event that brought together a community of friends, neighbors to play drums, flutes, and other instruments inspired by our natural wooded surroundings. We connected with each other through the spiritual power of music, communing with nature and each other. This affirmed that I may be on the right path for a meaningful and purposeful retirement journey. Well, at least for now. Doug Goodfeather of the Lakota Way Healing Center and author of Think Indigenous writes, many people come to a point in their life when they struggle with the purpose of their walk here on earth. They have reached a crossroads. It is here that they will discover the beginning of a true journey, walking the red road. Those of us who feel called to live life rooted in nature-based spirituality are said to walk the red road. This simply means that we have certain universal truths and sacred principles that guide us as we live a spiritual life. In a good way, is a term that's used in conjunction with walking the red road. If walking the red road means that we're on a virtuous path of learning universal truths and sacred virtues, then in a good way means that our daily actions and behaviors are in alignment with those teachings, morals, and virtues. These ways are as profound as they are simple. They are as powerful as they are humble, and they are as sacred as they are common. These living virtues cannot be purchased. They are not for sale. We either live them or we don't. So, are you walking the red road? What brings you joy? What nurtures your soul and spirit? How do you create purpose in your life? How do you or will you pull back, pull out, and withdraw into a personal retreat to be of service to your soul? I invite you to think about this so that you too will have a great, fulfilling life in a good way. Life is so short, so make it a meaningful one.
Some have wondered whether retirement should mean having more leisurely breakfasts and excellent desserts. It likely could mean both, but also should include turning toward others. If a spiritual life is about something more than me, perhaps even something sacred, I do not think of my spiritual life as being separate from the rest of life. I want whatever I do, in work or not, to be part of a spiritual life. That is, I want whatever I do to be worthwhile and about more than me and the false idols that I'm capable of worshiping, such as Eggs Benedict and ice cream. From the perspective of eternity, I fear that I, and whatever turns I take in life, such as leaving a job, might be of little significance. The billions of people on the planet and size of the universe humble me. I still, however, want to believe, as Martin Buber suggests, that the future stands in need of each of us in order to be born. I want whatever I'm doing to somehow participate in creating a better future. Yet how exactly I should use my life is not so clear. I am excessively privileged to have many choices. I want to use them wisely. Sadly, wanting to celebrate and pursue what is good and address wrongs courageously is not enough to stop wars, pandemics, ecological collapse, and injustice. The lack of a precise map to guide us puzzles me. Being without such a life map both liberates and disorients. It liberates because it suggests the possibility that perhaps whatever choices we make still have the potential to be useful and good. It also is disorienting in that no matter how hard we try or what we sacrifice, we often seem to be going in circles, even perhaps spiraling downward, not just spiritually. Therefore, it is a recurring and deeply unpleasant dream for me that everything, not just the spiral downward in me, ends permanently. Changes in life, such as a shift in one's working or personal life, might be baffling and for some even disappointing. But I trust that life is more than the disappointment and confusion that come with so many of life's twists and adjustments. Even as I sometimes stare into what appears to be an abyss of vanished hope and irreversible death, at some level, I trust that hope does not die. As I try to think about my spiritual life, I find myself thinking about others, the planet, the universe, and our maker. With the so-called retirement, I expected to regroup, rethink how to live, and better use my time. Spiritual practices I find valuable include listening to others and reading, studying the Bible with others, meditating on how to live my life as a prayer, being creative in new ways, such as by writing, drawing, and making music, exploring new ideas, places, and connections with others, caring for others and ourselves in important ways, including, for example, by cleaning, maintaining, and fixing that which is broken, and otherwise attempting to help heal the world, even if only in small ways. The list could be long, especially if one thinks of spiritual practices broadly. Even if some of us think of a spiritual life as only an illusion, or possibly also an evolutionary and neurological mystery, for me, an encouraging, useful, and vital sense of gratitude and love for others frequently comes with spiritual practices such as these. Having shifted gears in my work life, I'm grateful for the examples of others who have found and used their talents well. As I think about my spiritual life, I find myself now, perhaps more than ever, being concerned about how to make useful contributions and recognizing that we do not live forever. As you know, collectively, we are failing to adequately care for the world and each other, and are precipitating a future with more pain and global trouble than necessary. Inequities, unhealthy divisions, pollution, misinformation, and hate often seem unstoppable. Even lives spent trying to plant goodness and to mitigate and prevent such trouble can use additional time to step back, think, and act in new ways. By taking a step back from some of the work that needs doing, I want to gain additional perspective on what needs sharing and addressing. I want to live a life that helps meet immediate needs by paying more attention to others, volunteering with a smile. I want to find ways that contribute to a better world. And that is true even if the end, which could come sooner than expected, is inevitable, total, and final. I pray to be able to continue to try to turn, as Martin Buber has written, to what Paul Tillich describes as ultimate concern.